Call the meeting to order. I want to call on Councillor Zwaagstra to bring the opening, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to read an excerpt from a book that I just recently finished. It's by Tom Nichols, who is a professor of national security affairs at the U.S. Naval War College. And the book is called The Death of Expertise, the Campaign Against Established Knowledge and Why It Matters. We've all met them. They're our coworkers, our friends, our family members. They are young and old, rich and poor, some with education, others armed only with a laptop or a library card. But they all have one thing in common. They are ordinary people who believe they are actually troves of knowledge, convinced that they are more informed than the experts, more broadly knowledgeable than the professors, and more insightful than the gullible masses. They are the explainers who are more than happy to enlighten the rest of us about everything from the history of imperialism to the dangers of vaccines. We accept such people and put up with them, not least because we know that deep down they usually mean well. We even have a certain affection for them. The 1980s television sitcom Cheers, for example, immortalized the character of Cliff Clavin, the Boston mailman in Barfly who was an expert on everything. Cliff, like his real-life counterparts, prefaced every statement with, "Studies have shown," or "It's a known fact." Viewers loved Cliff because everyone knew someone like him. The cranky uncle at a holiday dinner, the young student home from that crucial first year of college. We could find such people endearing because they were quirky exceptions in a country that otherwise respected and relied on the views of experts. But something has changed over the past few decades. The public space is increasingly dominated by a loose assortment of poorly informed people, many of them disdainful of formal education and dismissive of experience. If experience is necessary for being president, the cartoonist and author Scott Adams tweeted during the 2016 election, "Name a political topic I can't master in 1 hour under the tutelage of top experts," as though a discussion with an expert is like copying information from one computer drive to another. A kind of intellectual Gresham's law is gathering momentum, where once the rule was bad money drives out good, we now live in an age where misinformation pushes aside knowledge. This is a very bad thing. A modern society cannot function without a social division of labor and a reliance on experts, professionals, and intellectuals. For the moment, I will use these three words interchangeably. No one is an expert on everything. No matter what our aspirations, we are bound by the reality of time and the undeniable limits of our talent. We prosper because we specialize, and because we develop both formal and informal mechanisms and practices that allow us to trust each other in those specializations. In the early 1970s, the science fiction writer Robert Heinlein issued a dictum, often quoted since, that specialization is for insects. Truly capable human beings, he wrote, should be able to do almost anything from changing a diaper to commanding a warship. It is a noble sentiment that celebrates human adaptability and resilience, but it's wrong. While there was once a time when every homesteader lumbered his own trees and built his own house, this not only was inefficient, but produced only rudimentary housing. There is a reason we don't do things that way anymore. When we build skyscrapers, we do not expect the metallurgist who knows what goes into a girder, the architect who designs the building, and the glazier who installs the windows to be the same person. That's why we can enjoy the view from 100 floors above a city. Each expert, although possessing some overlapping knowledge, respects the professional abilities of many others and concentrates on doing what he or she knows best. Their trust and cooperation lead to a final product greater than anything they could have produced alone. The fact of the matter is that we cannot function without admitting the limits of our knowledge and trusting in the expertise of others. We sometimes resist this conclusion because it undermines our sense of independence and autonomy. We want to believe we are capable of making all kinds of decisions, and we chafe at the person who corrects us or tells us we're wrong or instructs us in things we don't understand. This natural human reaction among individuals is dangerous when it becomes a shared characteristic among entire societies. So it's an interesting book because he goes through multiple examples of cases where we seem to often dismiss expertise even when we need it. Now, how does this apply to our setting as a city? I think the application is quite straightforward. None of us on council are experts in everything. There are many things that we don't have a lot of background knowledge in. That is why we rely on the advice of experts. When you look at our city staff, we have expertise in regards to our financial planning. We have an engineer who provides us with expert engineering advice. We have a public works director, a waterworks director, providing us with expertise in those areas. And of course, we have our city manager, who provides a well-rounded expertise in regards to how the city should be run. Would we get, and we even will contract with outside consultants to provide additional expertise when it comes to city planning. When we get our packages, we have recommendations given to us by experts. Now, does this mean that we need to always follow the advice of the experts? No, it doesn't mean that, and that's not what Nichols is saying in his book. We carefully review what the experts have to say, but we're generalists as members of council. Our job is to consider all the information, the advice of experts, along with our common sense and a general approach to policy, and also hearing from the public. We put all of that together and we make our decisions. Many times, probably in fact the majority of the time, we do end up following the recommendations of staff because we respect their expertise. We don't always. But what would be unfortunate, and where some cities get themselves into trouble, is when you have members of council that go to the route of saying, I don't care what the experts have to say, and they dismiss expertise out hand, where it becomes a point of honor to say that, you know what, I'm not even going to look at that report because I don't want some person, you know, who thinks they know everything giving me advice. That would be a dangerous approach. We don't have to bow down before experts and simply do whatever they happen to tell us. But it would be a foolish thing indeed not to at least consider what the experts have to say. So we need to use our common sense, put that together with expertise, and hopefully we can make some good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zwaagstra. Did our city manager give you that book? It's good, thank you. We do have the agenda in front of us, and I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please, as presented. Not quite as presented. We are not going to have the delegation from Indigenous and Municipal Relations due to the blackout period of the election. So, as amended, please. Councillor Penner, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Funk. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have the minutes in front of us from May 2nd. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Fair, second by Councillor Zwaagstra. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Business arising from the minutes. Can I have a motion to excuse Councillor Penner from this meeting, please? Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Penner. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We'll now move to the public hearings, and we'll close the council meeting and open the public hearing in regards to Variation 2017-04. This is 41 Wyndham Estate Drive. This is on page 4 of the package. Mr. Workentine, I'll ask you to introduce this, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this application for variance is being filed by Tom Buchert. Owner of the property is Sherry Buchert. Purpose of the variance is twofold. Firstly, to allow a front yard setback of 24.8 feet, whereas the minimum setback required in the RSF residential single-family zone is 25 feet. And secondly, to allow a rear yard setback of 14.7 feet, whereas a setback of 25 feet is required for the rear yard in the same zoning. The applicant is proposing to build a covered roof over top of an existing deck on the subject property, which is the reason for the application. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been completed. There are no registered objections on file. As was mentioned, the application is a result of wanting to put a covered or put a roof on the existing deck, and there are no other significant comments related to the file other than what is already in the package. Recommendation is for council to approve the variance subject to any information at the public hearing.
Thank you. We do have the applicant here today. Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to object or have any questions? Is there anyone here wishing to object or have any questions? For a third time, anyone here wishing to object or have any questions? Seeing none, does the applicant wish to speak? No? Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant from council? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Fair?
Move to approve it.
Move to approve. Seconded. by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the front yard setback is very, very nominal, so that probably might not even be here if that was the only issue. But the back is 14.7 feet, and there's no neighbors in the back. It's public reserve. There's really, I don't see any danger in that, and it looks like he's going to have trouble keeping his neighbors away anyway. So,
All right.
according to the pictures.
Thank you. Councillor Siemens.
Nothing further.
All right. Anything further from council? Anything in closing? All right. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll now move to 6B. This is Variation 2017-05, 442 Elmdale Street. This is on page 18. I will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Workentine.
This file, Variance V-2017-05, as was mentioned, 442 Elmdale Street. The owner of the property is Bertha Funk. The application for the variance is being filed by Moto Jodwin Law Corp. Purpose of the variance application is a number of items. Firstly, the existing carport to allow a south side yard of 1.75 feet where the minimum setback allowed is 2 feet, as was approved by council under variance file 2005-19. Secondly, also the existing carport to allow a south side yard eave to overhang to 0.85 feet, whereas the minimum setback allowed is 1 foot, also approved under that previous variance. Thirdly, the existing shed to allow a south side yard of 1.6 feet, whereas the minimum setback allowed is 1.85 feet as per previous variance. And fourthly, the existing deck to allow a deck to be at the property line, whereas the minimum setback allowed is 2 feet, also under original variance file V-2005-19. The reason for this arising, the property owner is in the process of selling the home and is applying to bring the house, the existing house and yard into compliance with City of Steinbach zoning bylaw. Notices pursuant to the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on file. The administration review of this file did recognize that there are some challenges, especially with the fact that this particular property was previously applied for variance application, which was approved by council. However, the limitations that were approved by council at the time were not adhered to. Therefore, administration recommendation for council is that council approve the variance subject to any new information that may be provided at the hearing. And recommendation is also council consider a fine equal to the amount of the application fee of $430.
Thank you. We do have the applicant here today. Is the applicant here today? Seeing no applicant, is there anyone here wishing to object to this file? Anyone here wishing to object? For a third time, anyone here wishing to object or have any questions? Seeing none, we don't have the applicant here today to answer any questions. All right, then we'll close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner.
Move to approve the variance and subject to a fine equal to the variance application fee included in that of $430.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Zwaagstra, go ahead.
Thank you. Being as the variations are all very minimal, I don't feel that there's any real purpose in denying this variation. I also think that being that the renovations to the carport, shed, and deck were not in compliance with the previously approved variance, that there should be a fine to cover the costs incurred by the city, and in representing people of the city, that it would be in order to levy the fine.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support the motion, and I will say that it's disappointing that we don't have the applicant here, because now we don't have all the information that we need. I was definitely wanting to ask the question in terms of the rationale for why the construction went beyond what was granted by the previous council, because that influences our thinking. And if there's a good explanation, that would affect the amount of the fine that we levy. So that's disappointing. At the same time, I will support the motion, because we're not talking about new construction. We're talking about bringing it into compliance And so this doesn't actually change anything, it just simply brings it into compliance with so that way they're able to move ahead with selling the home. But if this was new construction and the applicant wasn't here and there were questions that I had, I would have a lot of trouble supporting it. But because it's not new construction, I will support it, but I am disappointed that we don't have any representation here.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Fair.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will not be supporting the motion because I think that sends a bad message that I can do what I want and there won't be any repercussions. To me, the fine should be at least twice what it is, or maybe added $500 because we're sending a bad message that you can do what you want and there's no additional cost here to the applicant because they went around our back. So I don't think $430 is enough to send a message to this variance.
Thank you. Further discussion? Anything in closing?
Nothing.
All right. Council, obviously what we have in front of us here is a variation to bring a house that is going to be sold into compliance. Obviously, there's some disappointment that there was a previous variation made and then that variation was exceeded. And I think what Councillor Fair is identifying is an important thing to talk about, and that is that this is not acceptable. At the same time, we don't have that person or that applicant here to answer any questions, and this is something, as Councillor Zwaagstra alluded to, that already exists. So to hold this up for the applicants who are purchasing the home, I feel would be unacceptable, so I will support the motion with the fine that hopefully I think that clearly should send the message to that individual that there's better ways to do this. So, call for the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. All right, Council, we will now move to 8A. This is the land sale in regards to 127 Industrial Road. This is on page 29. Mr. Workentine.
This is a parcel of land shown on page 34 of Council's agenda package. The city has developed and held a number of industrial lots for sale, and there is currently an offer to purchase that has been received that is also part of Council's information package. The list price for this particular property at 127 Industrial Road has been at $75,000. And the offer is equal to that amount. Development agreement will be entered into that also requires the land to be developed within a specific period of time, and recommendation is Council approve this sale.
Thank you. How would Council like to proceed? Councillor Zwaagstra.
I'll make the motion we approve the sale.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Fair. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, the city has developed a number of industrial lots because we want to see more industrial growth within the city, so this is a positive thing that we're able to sell this at the listed price, and so I think we should move to proceed.
Thank you. Further discussion? Anything in closing? No. Council, obviously it's good to see a lot move, or this lot move in a process of development in our industrial area. We do have a number of lots available, and so selling these I think is appropriate, especially with the requirement to have it developed within a certain time period. Call for the question. All those in favour? Carried. We have the land purchase of 316 Barkman Avenue on page 39. Mr. Workentine.
This is another parcel of land. However, the file on this one is an opportunity to purchase property located at 316 Barkman Avenue. This is one of the remaining properties that is surrounding and near the city's arenas and curling rink. As far as the long-term strategy that the city has adopted for various residential parcels in this neighborhood, purchase of this particular parcel would follow that long-term strategy that the city has been acting on for many years, and recommendation that Council approve the purchase of this property for $150,000 with a possession date of August 1st, 2017.
Thank you. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, the purchase of 316 Barkman for $150,000, I think, is a fair market value, and I'm satisfied with that. It also supports our strategy to purchase land around the Elmdale area and the T.G. Smith Center, and I think it is important that for any long-term strategy to succeed, that we continue on and accumulate whatever properties do become available.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Siemens.
Question through you to administration.
Yep.
Question being, what happens to the house on August the 1st?
City would take vacant possession, and we anticipate that the house would be either demolished or removed at that point.
But they will no longer be occupied?
Correct.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to that.
Sure.
As well as that, I agree with the motion that we purchase, but a friendly amendment that it be removed from site as well.
Sorry, that it would, before it is purchased, that it get removed?
No, that city remove it after purchase.
Okay, thank you. The amendment is to, okay. Clarification, Mr. Workentine, this is in regards to, Councillor Siemens just wants to be reassured that this site will be removed. Can you clarify whether that should maybe be a separate motion or should be included in this motion?
Depending on if Councillor Siemens is satisfied, based on my understanding of the property, the city does not expect that it would become rental property.
As long as it's not a derelict building either.
Correct.
That's the concern.
Okay, so are you comfortable then not going forward with the amendment, but with the understanding that it will be gone? Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Anything in closing?
Nothing.
No. Council, obviously, we've had a long-term strategy of accumulating properties along this stretch near our recreation facility. This is an ongoing goal of the last 15 or probably 20 years. And I think it's important that this final piece of the puzzle certainly does bring this to an end along the front stretch of Elmdale and Barkman. And so we look forward to this completing this in August. So call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have the equipment purchase on page 46. Mr. Workentine.
This particular item, Mr. Mayor and members of council, is being brought before council for its purposes to authorize the purchase of a landfill compactor unit. There is an image of the unit on page 49. A couple things. This is a used piece of equipment, and by that very nature, it is difficult to get comparative estimates as to comparable pieces of equipment. However, based on the information that the city has been privy to and has access to, we feel that this is an appropriately priced unit given its age and condition, so that the city can continue to conduct the compacting services or activities at the city's landfill site. Also, further to the city's purchasing policy, any amounts for purchase exceeding $250,000 require a council resolution to authorize. And for those factors and others, administration recommendation is council approve this purchase for $245,000 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. Council, how would you like to proceed?
Question.
Councillor Fair has a question before we proceed. Okay, go ahead.
Just a question for administration. Like, when we spend it, do we include the taxes? Is that why this is here?
That's correct.
Another question as well.
Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Approximately, what would be the cost of the new version of this, the landfill compactor?
Comparable new machines that are similar in horsepower and capacity that are out there. The base cost is $650,000 with modifications of an additional $140,000.
Aren't you glad you don't have to buy these things new, eh? For yourself. Councillor Siemens, thank you. Motion to approve, second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will defer to the experts on this, and they've done their homework on it, and I appreciate what they've done, and I understand buying this type of equipment is costly, and it looks like low hours, it looks like it's the expert tells us it's a decent machine.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Councillor
Nothing
Penner.
further.
Anything further from council? Councillor Fair and then Councillor Funk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will support the motion, although when I read 82% of the time or idle hours, an engine's life is determined by the amount of fuel that's gone through it, not the amount of hours that are on it or the miles or whatever. So I think it has a lot of hours on it, but I think that it's a hard to find machine, and so I think that I can support it for that. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Funk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will also support this motion, and talking with our experts earlier this week, he just shared to me how long it took him to find a machine like this. There's not very many available, and this is a pretty good price for this machine. Plus, we have to really commend our staff for getting the most out of our last machine. Our last machine was from 1994, and it has considerably many more hours than this one does. And they managed to, through good maintenance and fixing things that break, they managed to make it last, and I believe they'll manage to make this one last, and it'll be a good purchase. So I'm going to trust the experts on this one.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could sort of go through the whole thing. I'm sort of quoting some of the specifications here and all that, but the reality is I don't know anything about landfill compactors, so I do go with the experts on this one. This does seem like a good deal, especially when you compare it to the cost of a new machine.
All right. In closing, Councillor Siemens.
Enough has been said.
All right. All right, Council. Obviously, we see this is an effort for our administration to deter the high costs of operations, and hopefully this will pay off in the long run. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Are you also deferring costs by keeping the air conditioning off in this room too? Is it? It's pretty warm in here. All right. 9A, we have accounts payable in the back of the book. You've all had a chance to review those. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Funk, seconded by Councillor Penner, that we move to approve.
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have on page 50 the building permits up to the end of April. I'm sorry, we do have the financial statements, end of April. In the back of the book as well, you've also had a chance to review those. Can I have a motion to approve those, please? Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Zwaagstra. Any discussion? Any questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have the building permits for April on page 50. There's a motion on the bottom of that page. Obviously, we see additional homes being built. It's good to see, 57 year to date, and there have been more already in the last number of weeks. Can I have someone move the motion on the bottom of page 50, please? Councillor Funk, seconded by Councillor Zwaagstra. Any discussion?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I'd like to say is it looks like we're off to a really good year, just under $17 million. And yes, like you said, a lot of new home starts. That's looking good. New people are moving in.
Yeah. Anything further from council? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any questions of council? Seeing none, there's no correspondence and petitions. We have the Community Contribution Award. This is on page 51. Council, we have had informal discussions in the past in regards to how do we recognize individuals and organizations that really make our city a special place. And so I think creating an award like this is one of those ways that we can do it. Besides saying thank you to the many organizations when we go to their events or see them on the individuals on the street, I think it is important for us as a community to recognize individuals and organizations that certainly make our city a better place. And so you have in front of you the guidelines and criteria for a potential award, and what I'm looking from you is ratification of creating this so that we can proceed. Councillor Penner.
May I just make a comment, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
I see one big problem with this,
Tell me.
that we have so many people in this city that contribute so much and so many great organizations. It's going to be very tough.
It's very appropriate, yes. Is that a motion to
Yes.
approve this? Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Councillor Zwaagstra. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think something like this is so important for our community, that we recognize people that are contributing in so many different ways, either individually or in organizations, and doing wonderful things in our city. Our city is the envy of many cities in the province and even across Canada, for people that contribute in so many different ways, be it through volunteerism, like organizations with Envision or Soup's On, or the many other wonderful organizations that are in the city, and the individuals too that make great contributions. So I think it's important as we model to the younger generations as well, how to be good citizens, how to contribute to cities and make them great places to live.
Thank you. Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support the motion. And the reality is that the people in our city who volunteer, and as Councillor Penner is right, it's going to be very tough to narrow this down in terms of who gets the recognition. The reality is that the people who are doing this work, who volunteer, don't do it for recognition. They don't do it for attention. They do it behind the scenes. That doesn't mean, however, that we shouldn't recognize people. In fact, that means really that we absolutely should, because people deserve to be recognized for the work that they do. And if we can, have this type of award available that shows that, as a council, that the city supports the volunteer work that goes on in the city, that we recognize it and that we appreciate it. Because the reality is that if we didn't have volunteers contributing in our community in so many positive ways, we wouldn't be the city that we are today. And so I think it is appropriate that we move ahead with this.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion from council? Anything in closing?
Just in closing, it also occurred to me how valuable volunteers are, even in financial terms. The number of hours that people donate to organizations or causes is invaluable in financial terms as well. Many organizations would not be able to function without them.
Council, a number of weeks ago, I was at the Manitoba Volunteer Appreciation Awards that are put on by the Premier's Awards, put on by the provincial government, and it really was brought home to my attention of how important, like Councillor Penner is stating, how important volunteers are to the functioning of our communities. We wouldn't have museums, we wouldn't have community organizations, we wouldn't have people going to visit the elderly in homes that are shut in. On and on and on. And you look at the classic example of so many volunteers from our churches and around the community who got together just last week with a pick up and walk. Thousands of people are volunteering their time to make our community better. And so this is not, we won't be able to recognize everybody, but I think this will give us an opportunity from time to time to recognize individuals who've made an outstanding contribution, and I think it'll be well deserved as we move forward with this. So call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Fair, second by Councillor Penner. All those in favor? Carried.